When you think of the teachings of Jesus, certain phrases might immediately come to mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. Turn the other cheek, or blessed are the meek. These are the teachings that have been passed down through generations, shaping the foundation of Christian thought. But what if there were deeper lessons hidden within these teachings, messages that go beyond what we typically hear in church or read in the Bible? Today, we're diving into the secret teachings of Jesus, exploring lessons that are often overlooked or misunderstood, yet are crucial for understanding the full depth of his message. Now, you might be wondering, why is it important to explore these lesser-known teachings? Well, the truth is that the teachings of Jesus, like any profound wisdom, can be multi-layered. The more we dig, the more we uncover insights that can transform not just our spiritual lives, but also our everyday interactions and how we see the world around us. These teachings are like a treasure chest, and the more we explore, the more we discover truths that are not only timeless, but also deeply relevant to the challenges we face today. By understanding these hidden lessons, we gain a richer, more nuanced perspective on what Jesus was truly trying to convey. This isn't just about gaining knowledge. It's about learning how to live more fully in alignment with those teachings, and discovering how they can guide us through the complexities of modern life. In this video, we're going to unpack 4 key lessons that Jesus taught, lessons that, while perhaps not entirely hidden, are often misunderstood or underappreciated. We'll begin by exploring the concept of the kingdom of God and how it might be closer than you think, possibly residing within each of us. This idea of an internal kingdom has profound implications for how we view ourselves and our place in the world. Then, we'll delve into the radical nature of forgiveness, a concept that is far more challenging and powerful than it appears on the surface, and one that has the potential to transform not just personal relationships, but entire communities. Forgiveness, as Jesus taught it, is not just a simple act. It's a radical shift in perspective that can heal even the deepest wounds. After that, we'll discuss the value of humility and service, qualities that are often at odds with our modern, success-driven culture, but remain vital for true spiritual growth. Jesus' teachings on humility challenge us to rethink what it means to be successful and to consider how service to others can bring about a more meaningful life. And finally, we look at how Jesus' teachings on love go beyond any boundaries, challenging us to rethink our views on inclusivity and acceptance. His message of love was not just for a select few, but for everyone, regardless of race, class, or creed. This lesson is perhaps more relevant today than ever as we navigate a world that often seems divided along so many lines. By the end of this video, I hope you'll not only have a deeper understanding of these teachings, but also feel inspired to reflect on how they can be applied in your own life. These lessons aren't just ancient wisdom. They are a call to action for how we live today. So, let's get started with the first lesson: the kingdom of God within you. Hidden lesson 1: the kingdom of God within. When we hear the phrase the kingdom of God, many of us imagine a future paradise, a place of peace and justice that will be established at the end. This is a common interpretation, where the kingdom is seen as an external, physical reality, perhaps in heaven or on earth after some divine intervention. This understanding has been a cornerstone of Christian eschatology, influencing countless sermons, hymns, and religious teachings throughout history. But what if Jesus was speaking about something more immediate? Something that exists not in a distant future, but here and now, within us? The Gospel of Luke records Jesus saying, "The kingdom of God is not coming with signs to be observed, nor will they say, 'Look, here it is,' or 'there,' for behold, the kingdom of God is in your midst." Luke 17:20-21. This passage has been the subject of much debate among scholars and theologians. Some interpret it as Jesus referring to himself as the embodiment of the kingdom, being present among his followers. But there's another interpretation, one that suggests Jesus was teaching that the kingdom of God is not an external place or future event, but an internal state of being. This idea is even more explicitly presented in non-canonical texts, like the Gospel of Thomas. In saying 3, Jesus is quoted as saying, "The kingdom is inside you, and it is outside you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that you are the children of the living Father." Here, the kingdom of God is directly linked to self-awareness and spiritual awakening. It suggests that the divine realm isn't something we enter after death, but something we can experience right now by turning inward and realizing our true nature. So, what does it mean to embrace the idea that the kingdom of God is within us? First, it invites us to shift our focus from waiting for an external change to initiating an internal transformation. It's about recognizing that the qualities associated with the kingdom, peace, love, justice, and compassion are not just divine gifts bestowed upon us, but potentialities within us that we can cultivate and manifest in our lives. Practically speaking, this teaching challenges us to take responsibility for our own spiritual development. If the kingdom of God is within, then it's our task to nurture it. This could mean setting aside time for reflection, meditation, or prayer to connect with our inner selves. It might involve practicing mindfulness in our daily activities, paying attention to how we respond to challenges, and striving to act from a place of love and compassion rather than fear or anger. Moreover, this internal understanding of the kingdom compels us to reconsider how we interact with the world around us. If we truly believe that the kingdom of God is within us, then we must also acknowledge that it's within everyone else as well. This perspective can transform how we view others, encouraging us to see the divine potential in every person, regardless of their actions or circumstances. It calls us to treat others with the same respect and dignity that we would afford the sacred, knowing that each interaction is an opportunity to bring forth the kingdom of God into the world. In essence, understanding the kingdom of God as an internal state shifts the focus of Jesus' teaching, from waiting for a distant paradise to creating the paradise here and now, within ourselves and our communities. It's a call to live in the present moment with awareness, compassion, and a deep connection to the divine within us. Hidden lesson 2. Radical forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of the most central themes in Jesus' teachings. From the Sermon on the Mount, where he instructs, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you," To his response to Peter about how many times one should forgive, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times, forgiveness is portrayed as a cornerstone of Christian life. On the surface, these teachings seem straightforward. We are called to forgive those who wrong us, repeatedly and unconditionally. But when we delve deeper, we find that Jesus' concept of forgiveness is far more radical and challenging than it first appears. In the context of first-century Judea, the idea of forgiveness that Jesus preached was revolutionary. The cultural norm of the time was based on the principle of retribution, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Justice was often seen as punitive, where wrongs were met with proportional punishment. Against this backdrop, Jesus' call to forgive was not just countercultural. It was a profound challenge to the prevailing social and religious order. He wasn't merely advocating for the act of forgiveness as a personal virtue. He was proposing a complete overhaul of how society should respond to wrongdoing. One of the most powerful examples of radical forgiveness in Jesus' life is found in his final moments on the cross. As he hung there, suffering, he looked upon those who had betrayed, tortured, and crucified him, and said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23:34. This was not just an act of personal forgiveness. It was an extension of grace to his enemies in the midst of their wrongdoing. It highlights the depth of Jesus' commitment to forgiveness, not just for the repentant or those who seek forgiveness, but even for those who are in the act of causing harm. This level of forgiveness is difficult to comprehend, let alone practice. It challenges us to reconsider our own responses to being wronged. In our modern context, forgiveness is often seen as something we do for our own peace of mind, a way to move on from past hurts. But Jesus' teachings suggest that forgiveness is far more than that. It's a radical act of love that can disrupt cycles of retribution and violence. By choosing to forgive, we refuse to perpetuate the cycle of hurt and instead create the possibility for healing and reconciliation. However, this doesn't mean that forgiveness is synonymous with forgetting or condoning harmful behavior. Radical forgiveness acknowledges the pain and harm caused, but chooses to respond in a way that seeks restoration rather than revenge. It's about holding space for both justice and mercy, recognizing that true forgiveness often involves difficult, ongoing work rather than a single moment of absolution. Applying this lesson in modern life can be challenging, but it is also deeply transformative. In personal relationships, practicing radical forgiveness might mean letting go of grudges and extending grace to those who have hurt us, even when it feels undeserved. It involves acknowledging the humanity in those who wrong us and understanding that forgiveness is not about excusing bad behavior, but about freeing ourselves from the bondage of resentment. On a broader scale, radical forgiveness can have profound implications for society. Imagine a world where justice systems prioritize restoration over punishment, where communities are built on principles of reconciliation rather than retribution. This doesn't mean that accountability is ignored, but rather that it's pursued in a way that seeks healing for both the victim and the perpetrator. In this light, Jesus' teachings on forgiveness challenge us to rethink how we approach justice, both personally and collectively. In conclusion, Jesus' call to radical forgiveness is one of the most demanding aspects of his teachings. It asks us to go beyond our natural inclinations, to forgive not just for our own sake, but to create the possibility of healing and transformation in our lives and in the world around us. Hidden Lesson 3: The Value of Humility and Service. In today's world, success is often measured by power, wealth, and status. We're taught to climb the social ladder, to seek recognition, and to assert our dominance in order to achieve our goals. However, the teachings of Jesus present a starkly different perspective, one where the greatest among us are those who serve others with humility. Jesus himself embodied this principle throughout his life. Despite being revered as the Messiah, he did not come to be served, but to serve. One of the most striking examples of this is the moment when Jesus, the teacher and leader, washes the feet of his disciples. In the Gospel of John, this act of humility is described as a deliberate lesson. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. John 13:14. In a society where washing feet was considered the work of the lowest servant, Jesus' actions were revolutionary. He was demonstrating that true leadership is not about exerting power over others, but about lowering oneself to serve them. This theme of humility is central to many of Jesus' teachings. In the Gospel of Matthew, he says, "The last will be first, and the first will be last." Matthew 20:16. This paradoxical statement challenges the conventional wisdom of his time and ours that, to be great, one must be above others. Instead, Jesus flips the script, suggesting that true greatness is found in humility and service. He consistently taught that those who humble themselves will be exalted, while those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Yet, in our modern, success-driven society, humility is often undervalued. If not outright dismissed, we are encouraged to self-promote, to highlight our achievements, and to pursue our own advancement. The idea of putting others first, of serving without seeking recognition, seems counterintuitive to the world's standards of success. But this is precisely why Jesus' message is so powerful. It calls us to a higher standard, one that transcends societal norms and challenges us to reevaluate our priorities. Humility, as taught by Jesus, is not about thinking less of ourselves, but about thinking of ourselves less. It's about recognizing that our worth does not come from our achievements or our status, but from our willingness to serve others. This doesn't mean we shouldn't strive for excellence or take pride in our work, but it does mean that our efforts should be oriented towards the well-being of others, not just our own gain. In practical terms, embracing humility and service in our lives might involve small, everyday actions like being more mindful of others' needs, offering help without expecting anything in return, or giving credit to others rather than seeking it for ourselves. It could also mean engaging in acts of service within our communities, volunteering our time and resources to help those in need. These acts, though they may seem small, align us with the teachings of Jesus and contribute to a culture of humility and mutual care. In a world that often celebrates self-importance, Jesus' teachings on humility and service stand as a countercultural invitation. They challenge us to lead by serving, to find our greatness in humility, and to live in a way that reflects the values of the kingdom of God, a kingdom where the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Hidden lesson 4. Love beyond boundaries. Throughout his ministry, Jesus consistently broke down barriers that separated people, whether it was cultural, social, or religious divisions. He taught a form of love that transcends all boundaries, a love that was as radical as it was inclusive. One of the most compelling examples of this boundary-breaking love is the parable of the Good Samaritan. In this story, a man is beaten and left for dead on the side of the road. Several people pass by, including a priest and a Levite, both of whom are expected to help, but choose not to. It's a Samaritan, a member of a group despised by the Jews, who stops to help the man. Jesus concludes by asking, "Which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" Luke 10:36. The answer is clear. The true neighbor is the one who shows mercy, regardless of societal labels or boundaries. This parable is more than just a story about kindness. It's a profound lesson in radical inclusivity. By making the hero of the story a Samaritan, Jesus challenges the prejudices of his time and demonstrates that love knows no boundaries. It's not limited by race, nationality, or religion. It's a universal commandment that applies to all of humanity. Jesus lived this message throughout his life. He consistently reached out to those who were marginalized by society: lepers, tax collectors, women, and even Roman centurions. These were people who, according to the norms of the time, should have been excluded from God's favor. But Jesus' actions and teachings made it clear that God's love is not confined by human-made boundaries. His interactions with these individuals were not just acts of compassion. They were deliberate statements that the love of God extends to everyone, regardless of their social status or background. In today's world, this lesson of love beyond boundaries is as relevant as ever. We live in a time where divisions, whether political, racial, or ideological, seem to be growing wider. The teachings of Jesus call us to rise above these divisions and to love in a way that transcends them. This doesn't mean ignoring differences or pretending that they don't exist, but rather recognizing the shared humanity that lies beneath them. Practicing this kind of love requires us to step out of our comfort zones. It means being willing to engage with people who are different from us, to listen to their stories, and to extend kindness and compassion even when it's difficult. It's about seeing the image of God in every person and treating them with the dignity and respect that they deserve. This love beyond boundaries also challenges us to advocate for justice and inclusion. It's not enough to simply feel compassion. We are called to act on it. This might involve standing up against discrimination, supporting policies that promote equality, or simply being a voice for those who are marginalized in our own communities. In this way, we continue the work that Jesus began, building a world where love is the guiding principle and where all people are welcomed and valued. In conclusion, Jesus' teachings on love call us to a higher standard, a love that breaks down barriers, embraces the other, and reflects the boundless love of God. As we seek to live out this lesson in our own lives, we not only honor Jesus' message, but also contribute to a more just and compassionate world. As we've journeyed through these hidden teachings of Jesus, it's clear that his message goes far deeper than the surface-level interpretations we often encounter. Each of these lessons the kingdom of God within, radical forgiveness, the value of humility and service, and love beyond boundaries offers profound insights that challenge us to rethink how we live our lives. The idea that the kingdom of God is not some distant, future paradise, but a present, internal reality invites us to turn inward and cultivate a spiritual life that reflects the peace and justice of God's reign. This is a call to action for us to embody the qualities of the kingdom in our daily lives, transforming our interactions with others and our own inner world. Radical forgiveness, perhaps the most demanding of Jesus' teachings, pushes us beyond the limits of human instinct. It asks us to let go of resentment, to forgive not just for our own sake, but to break the cycles of hurt and retribution that plague our relationships and societies. This lesson reminds us that true healing and peace come from a place of deep, unconditional love. In a world that often equates greatness with power and success, Jesus' teachings on humility and service stand as a countercultural challenge. True leadership, as Jesus modeled, is about serving others with humility, putting their needs above our own, and finding our worth not in status or achievements, but in our ability to love and serve. Finally, Jesus' message of love beyond boundaries is perhaps the most relevant for our times. In an increasingly divided world, his call to love everyone, regardless of race, class, or creed, is a radical and necessary reminder that the love of God knows no boundaries. It's a love that compels us to reach out, to build bridges, and to advocate for justice and inclusion in every aspect of our lives. These teachings of Jesus are not just ancient wisdom. They are timeless truths that continue to challenge and inspire us today. As you reflect on these lessons, I encourage you to consider how they can be applied in your own life. How can you embody the kingdom of God within? In what ways can you practice radical forgiveness, humility, and love that transcends all boundaries? These are not easy questions, but they are essential for anyone seeking to live a life that is truly aligned with the teachings of Jesus. If you found these insights valuable, consider sharing them with others. Let's continue to explore these teachings together and strive to create a world that reflects the love, peace, and justice that Jesus envisioned.